Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about a crazy new idea that was floated out there yesterday of a super league in college football. So if you want to check out that segment, you could definitely check it out. But let's jump into a new debate that has sparked the last couple of days. Kirby Smart had an interesting comment in an ESPN Q&A where he talked about the 12-team playoff and did say, yes, it does keep teams alive throughout the season where you can have a loss, you can have two losses at some point in the season and continue on marching, but he didn't necessarily think that increased the chances of those teams winning a title at the end of the whole thing. So I wanted to give my take on, first of all, what he said, and then give you the teams that I think actually have a chance to win this title. So first of all, I do understand what he's saying. It's something that, frankly, I've thought for quite some time. I think the 12-team playoff is a great way to get a ton of different teams into the spotlight, to get a ton of different teams into the playoff, have them play that first-round game or that second-round game, and, show who they are and get their brand on national television and, definitely build some great things. But the reality is, they now have to win 3 games to be a Cinderella run. They don't have to just win one. So TCU in 2022, that was remarkable. It was an incredible run that they went on. Max Duggan coming in as a backup quarterback in the first game of the season and lighting the world on fire was not something that a lot of people thought was going to happen. And especially them getting to the national title, going into that matchup against Michigan, no one thought was going to happen. So but it ended up happening because they were better on that day. And that is a huge part of sports. Sometimes it's just people have it, some people don't. So TCU was just cooking that day, and they won the game, went to the national title, and got railroaded, don't get me wrong, but absolutely had that moment in the spotlight. Now if they were going to pull that off, they have to win a game likely on another team's campus. Then they have to win a semifinal game against a team that has been off for 2 weeks and has gotten healthy, and then they have to win another game against one of the top teams in the country before they even get to the championship. So this idea that, we will see these remarkable Cinderella runs, I think it's still in the cards. I think that's still a possibility. There are teams out there that have that ability in them, but it's going to be really tough. And I think one of the big reasons for that is when you look up and down rosters across the country, there are teams that stand out in top-level talent across the country. There are teams that have a great 22 starting lineup across the country, whether it's Utah or Kansas State, or you can talk about teams even like Nebraska that has a really good group of players up there right now. There are tons of teams. Penn State has a great 22. Miami has a great 22. The problem is you don't just need 22 players to win a national championship. You need your 2 deep to be great. You need your 3 deep to be great, if I'm being totally honest. When you look at these past couple of champions, particularly the 2 Georgia teams and Michigan this past year, the depth was just ridiculous across both those teams. They could have had numerous injuries on the defensive side of the ball in particular and still continued rolling. And in fact, they did. I mean, Georgia has had injuries throughout that time in the 2022 season. For sure, they had a couple of injuries that really held them back. So there are tons of things that kind of go into this, and health is a huge thing, and luck goes into absolutely every single title. So having that ability to stay healthy, and if you can't stay healthy, having the ability to go to your 2 deep and feel okay is something that not everyone has. A lot of people have, the starting lineup. Not a lot of people have the 2 deep or the 3 deep that is necessary to win titles. And a lot of the teams that do have it reside in the SEC and the Big Ten. So I tend to believe that, yes, this is mostly true. I think there's definitely truth to the idea that when you look up and down these rosters, teams like Georgia, teams like Ohio State, teams like Bama, they can deal with these losses on, a position or two, or they can, rotate a guy in if someone on the offensive line isn't playing up to where they see fit. So they have the ability to kind of play around with their roster because they have 44 or 66 guys on their roster that would be playing in a number of different programs across the country. Not everyone does that, and not everyone can say that. So it's going to be really tough for the TCUs of the world, if you will, to make their way into the playoff. And then, well, it'll be easier for them to make their way into the playoff, I will say that. It's going to be a ton harder for them to make the run in the playoff that a lot of people have fallen in love with, and a lot of people have given a reason for expanding it. But at the end of the day, I think it's one of those things that more football is fun. Having more teams, at least on those national stages, will be fun. Whether or not those games will be very competitive, I think, is very much up for debate. But let's jump into who I think actually can win the national championship. And I broke it up into 3 different tiers. I think there's kind of 3 groups of teams that have the ability. It's just varying chances to pull that off. So let's start with the clear-cut contenders, the people that are, bar none, there's really no chance, barring some remarkable drop, they will be in the conversation. They will be towards the top of the pecking order pretty much all year. And let's start with Georgia. That's a duh. Georgia's going to be in the conversation for a very, very long time. And if Carson Beck is their quarterback, which he's going to be in 2024, they're going to be terrifying on offense. So I would not worry about Georgia. They will absolutely be in the conversation. Ohio State, another duh. A lot of people on particularly Twitter that have no profile picture will tell you that Ryan Day cannot win the big one. He just hasn't yet. He absolutely has the ability, and he is doing a lot of things up there to make sure that happens. So Ohio State, absolutely. Texas, when you look at that roster, it's just off the charts. It is as deep as there is in the country. And when you look at the roster 3 years ago, before Sark came in, it was very far from that. So he's done incredible work in his 3 years, and the time is now. You have Quinn Ewers in his 3rd year. Everything's rolling in Austin, Texas. And then Oregon, absolutely in the conversation. Transfer portals players do have to hit, but the talent and the experience of those transfer portal players makes that a lot easier. And the talent is just off the charts. Dylan Gabriel coming in is a huge addition, so feel really good about the Oregon Ducks going into this year. And then Bama. The aforementioned people on Twitter will tell you that Bama has fallen off, that they're done without Saban. Don't buy it. I'll talk about them tomorrow. I'll talk about a little bit about what the first couple of months have been under Kalen DeBoer. They'll be just fine in 2024. I'll put it that way. Now let's get to the teams that I'm dubbing the if the stars align teams. There's a couple of things that need to happen for these teams for them to hit that next level, but if they do, things could happen very, very quickly. And let's start with Michigan. They are the obvious team. If quarterback and wide receiver hits, watch out. If Alex Orji can handle this offense the same way that J.J. McCarthy did, plus the athletic ability that he has, this team gets very interesting because the defense is going to be downright awesome. So I'm not worried about that, but the quarterback is a big worry. And then Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava is capable of literally anything in his first starting year, going into his sophomore year of college. He could have a Hendon Hooker type year. I think Tennessee fans would tell you that, but he is someone that has every ability to light the world on fire and get Tennessee in conversations that there might be some Tennessee fans that don't even think they'll be in those conversations. And then Penn State, Drew Aller, same thing as Nico Iamaleava, going into his 2nd year. He did start last year, which definitely helps him, but his talent, in my opinion, is undeniable. He has a rocket for an arm. He can do a ton of really good things. Bringing Andy Kotelnicki into that offense as offensive coordinator is absolutely huge for him. If he can hit another gear, then this Penn State team is capable of a lot of things. And then Ole Miss, big-time transfer portal class. All of those guys got to hit, pretty much all of them. Especially on that defensive line. Walter Nolan will be just fine. I don't worry about him, but they have some other guys that absolutely have to hit, plus some younger guys that need to step up. We talked about Suntarine Perkins earlier this week. He is someone that I'm definitely keeping my eye out on. And then Jackson Dart in year 3. We talked about Quinn Ewers. It absolutely gives him a leg up that Jackson Dart is in year 3 of Lane Kiffin's offense up there. LSU is another team I would put in this category. Garrett Nussmeier is the guy finally. I think his ceiling is higher than some people might fully understand. I think he is genuinely a guy that could be one of the top, if not the top quarterback in the 2026 NFL draft. So a little bit down the road, but I think he has that type of ability. Florida State, if DJ Uiagalelei hits early, this team can be right where they were in 2023. The defense is going to be a nightmare to deal with, even with all the guys that they had going out. They have so much talent on that defensive side of the ball. So really like this team. It just comes down to some of those offensive transfers hitting the way that they've hit in the past for Mike Norvell. And then Clemson, another ACC team. Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley hold the keys to Clemson's success. If they hit, then Clemson hits. If they struggle the way they did last year, Clemson fans are going to be a little bit upset in fall for sure. And then Missouri, the new defensive staff just has to hit. They lost a ton of guys, mostly to LSU it seemed, with Blake Baker, their defensive coordinator, making his way down to Baton Rouge. But plenty of ability on that defensive side of the ball. If the defensive staff can hit, they should be rolling. And then Brady Cook and Luther Burden can hit heights that Missouri fans even, I don't think, can dream of, honestly. I think these guys can be as good of a quarterback and wide receiver duo as there is in the country. And then the final group of teams, the door is open, so they could win, is the group that I have here. And it's a lot of Big 12 teams, I'll be honest. I don't think there's quite a team that is technically national championship caliber, but there's teams that have the ability. I mean, the door's going to be open. They could kick it right open. So, Avery Johnson for Kansas State to start here. Avery Johnson is an absolute game changer. If he catches on fire, he can do anything, literally anything this year. I think he is capable of so much more than even Kansas State fans might think, because he is just remarkable with his legs, with his arms. I think he can do something that would light the college football world on fire. He could win a Heisman for all I know. I mean, the dude's ability is off the charts. And then Utah, another Big 12 team. They're going to play really tough football. They're going to be in every single game. If Cam Rising is healthy, they know that they win conferences in the Pac-12. I mean, in 2021 and 2022, they won the Pac-12. So that gets you into the party. And then you'll have one of the best coaches in the country in Kyle Whittingham, and a Cam Rising that is very experienced and very confident. So I would feel good about Utah if they got into the dance, but still would be very, very tough for them to win a national title. Miami's another team I put on here, a lot like Avery Johnson example. Cam Ward is the exact same. If he hits the heights that he's capable of, the Hurricanes are going to be a lot better than people might expect them to be right now. This dude is an absolute game changer, and if he can, unlock that extra gear of his game that he definitely has in there, I think this team's heights are remarkable, to be totally honest with you. And then Arizona has Noah Fafita and Tatori McMillan, and that's really the only reason. I think they have a Mac Jones, Devontae Smith type year in the cards. Very unlikely, I'll be totally honest, but it's somewhere in there, and they definitely have a connection that is unlike anything else in the country. And then I snuck in Colorado here. There's too much talent for them to not necessarily have a shot, but it's a very, very slim shot. I'll put it that way. Deciding who's going to win a title in April is insanely tough and kind of a crapshoot, I'll be totally honest. But I do think this is the group that it will come from. I would be insanely surprised if there was someone outside this group that made the noise necessary to win a national title. So that's the group I'm going with. I'm going to stick with it. If it comes back to bite me, so be it, I suppose. But we're going to take our second break here, and when we come back, we're going to do team slogans. We've done this before with the clear-cut contenders that we just talked about, but now it's time to get to the rest of the group. Definitely some teams that have big-time years coming up in 2024, so wanted to give them kind of a slogan, a mantra, a motto, whatever you want to call it, to come back to throughout the 2024 season. So stick with us, and we will be right back with that.